I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey Dave, I'm thinking about doing another revolution. Do you want to join up? I might need some help with organising the pamphlets though.
Pop Culture Pasta.
Cody, I have an important notification for you.
Sweet.
I need to tell you that your Facebook page has been scheduled for permanent deletion due to a post that has infringed upon our trademark rights. Just so you know.
I can't believe I did it again.
Again! I get like 3 of these a day.
What'd you do?
I know.
They want some of that pop culture pastor action. Apparently, I guess, if you have a page on Facebook and they think you're dense enough to believe that Kader Zanaha is in charge of Meta's copyright laws.
I do believe that. Now, the graduating class I graduate with, we have a Facebook page, and it has been infiltrated by a whole bunch of different bots. Some of the scantily clad ones, but then also, if you don't buy this class shirt, you're going to get kicked out of the group. And we've had like 50 of those, and I'm still in it. So,
how dare you not buy the class shirt? How dare you?
Is this real? The trademark thing, or are you just making this up?
No, it's
a real
scams.
email that we got.
Yeah. So if you have a Facebook page, like if your church
so
has
it's
one,
fake. Oh, okay.
I'm sure you're getting this message.
Scammers going to scam.
Daily. And it's always some random person because they hacked someone's account. And it's like, Frank Smith says I violated Meta's trademark rules. Oh, no.
Please respond to this email to confirm that your group is still active.
Yeah. Don't listen. Here's a little tip for all of you listening at home. Don't click the link. Just don't do it.
I know you're tempted.
Yeah, it might be everything you've ever wanted to do. Don't do it. Don't click the link. That's the best advice I could ever give anyone. Yeah. Welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor. We give helpful hints.
We do.
Like Heloise. That's a blast from the past.
Before me.
My name's Dave. Cody's here.
Yes.
Also, Minister DJ Dangerfield.
Yes, I'm in the house.
And if DJ's here, you know what that means.
We're going to be here forever.
Well, that too. But we watched the documentary, which we're going to get to.
Just call me the Black Joe Rogan.
Okay. That fits. I accept that for you in Jesus' name.
Name it and claim it.
I only have, we should talk about the breakfast thing. We're down to our final 2, finally.
Oh, that's happening.
In our March Madness cereal edition brackets.
It was a nail biter in one of them.
It was. That would be the Honey Nut Cheerios Frosted Flakes matchup.
That was like 50-50 forever.
And some of you, I think you're doing it just to spite me.
100.
Yeah, I think they're doing it just to spite me. Honey Nut Cheerios defeats Frosted Flakes and moves into the championship matchup. I'm just so confused. I mean, Honey Nut Cheerios are so bad, dude.
Can't do it.
It is a safe cereal.
I agree with that. Like, I do eat them, but I don't see them being like,
to me, they were that was the cereal my mom used to buy me when that was like our sugar cereal treat. Like every few months we'd get Honey Nut Cheerios, and to me it's on the same level as Kix. It's a little sweet, but not real sweet, Yeah. It's just trash. I don't like it.
You add some sugar and it becomes more sweet.
Well, okay, but
gosh, Kix, he really went there.
Anyways, Honey Nut Cheerios is in the finals against Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And listen,
I love me some Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I'm just telling y'all right now, you mischief makers. If Honey Nut Cheerios beat Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I'm ending the podcast. I'm just kidding. I'm retiring the podcast.
Wow, grand opening, grand closing.
Half the people listening are like, "Do you promise?"
Yeah.
You promise? Well. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is miles ahead of Honey Nut Cheerios. I would hope. So we will see. That is the vote. The final matchup is Cinnamon Toast Crunch defeated Fruity Pebbles. And so that's what we'll vote on this coming week. Cinnamon Toast Crunch versus Honey Nut Cheerios. It all comes down to this.
I'm ready.
Yep. And then we'll sing One Shining Moment.
Let's do it. Luther or Teddy P?
Oh, it's got to be. I don't know. How do you choose between those two?
We need Action Jackson here to help us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we have multiple people, then one can become Luther, one can be Teddy, and I'll just be sitting back enjoying it.
So let me ask you this, not to take over the show, but what white artist would you have sing One Shining Moment if you had to pick it?
Oh man, I don't know.
We don't do that.
Who's the most soulful white dude
said
you
we
can
don't.
think of? Rick Astley, maybe? Like, who's soulful?
Why did he say we don't do that? You wouldn't have Justin Timberlake sing it?
No.
Maybe 15 years ago. I don't know. Maybe we'd still let JT sing it. I don't know.
That first album he had, y'all have to admit, that mug was fire.
Yeah, that was good.
That first album was pretty fire.
If we could go back in time, maybe Bowie. I know it's not soulful, but he'd make it his own.
Okay.
That's true. I
Yeah.
agree.
It couldn't get much whiter.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Dave. I miss you guys.
It's always good to have DJ. DJ, I know, will laugh at my jokes. He's
Yes.
one of my favorite guests.
Yes.
I only got one news item. It dropped today as we're recording. They've cast Silver Surfer in the Fantastic Four movie.
Oh boy, here we go.
Allegedly.
Let me brace myself here.
Yeah, brace yourself.
Yes, let me.
Julia Garner from Ozarks, who's wonderful. She's awesome. I think she's a great actress. I didn't watch all of Ozark.
Is that the girl? That's the girl that had the accent with the curly hair.
Yep.
Yeah, I think she's great.
She overshadowed everybody. She stole it.
She did.
She is playing a version of the Silver Surfer named Shalabal, who in the comic books was the love interest of Norrin Rad, who was the original Silver Surfer that everyone knows and loves. So naturally, Marvel is going to say, no, we're not giving you that Silver Surfer. We're giving you Shalabal, who's like, I think she was a surfer for like a few minutes in one of the storylines, but I don't know. This Marvel continues to make these weird decisions after the success of basically playing out one of their most popular stories, kind of the way it happened, but making their own adjustments. There were adjustments, but never just changing up like who is in the story. Like, I don't know. To me, Silver Surfer is one of the most beloved comic characters of all time.
For some people.
Yeah. But like, I feel like I don't know whether they're just overthinking it, whether they're just like, maybe they want to change the characters and change the story enough because then it places them above. Like, they don't want to hear like, oh, you're just retelling someone else's stories. Maybe that's it.
Or like, so when you do have these comic book movies, and if they remain true to the comics or try to, then you get people nitpicking like, well, you changed this and you didn't do that. And if you change it up enough that it's going to be hard to hone in on like what specific run you're going with, and you can borrow from multiple runs, and people will be like, oh, I remember this from that, and I remember that from this. And
okay. Yeah, I could see that. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Like, I guess if we could turn it to a different property, James Gunn has a certain individual style.
Oh, yeah.
And surely he will bring that individual style to the Superman movie he's doing.
Yes.
I think from where it will be successful or not successful has more to do with, can he put his spin on it without not making it a Superman movie anymore? You know what I'm saying? Like, the really genius thing he did with the Guardians of the Galaxy was that they were still like pretty loyal to like that new team in the comics of the Guardians. Like, the characters were all pretty much the way those characters appeared in the comics. But he still made it his own, for sure. Those movies just are James Gunn movies. But he had more room to maneuver there, too. There wasn't quite as much comics history.
So I will say I'm not concerned with James Gunn just because having seen Brightburn, which is like his evil super kid story. Like that one was done legit, and it has a completely different tone and feel than Guardians of the Galaxy. And so but it definitely connected with like, oh, this correlates with Superman really well, except, oh, this time the kid's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in a weird place where I actually have more confidence that
DC's back.
DC's going to do something right. And Marvel, I just don't like. Look, I'm not.
Maybe we can't handle both of them at the same time.
Maybe I'm not mad because it's a girl. I'm mad because it's not Norrin Rad, who is the Silver Surfer, because that's the character I love. And also, by the way, Galactus had lots of female heralds. Frankie Ray Nova was a great herald that I liked, who was a female. Like, why not? If you want to use a female there, just use one of the characters that already exist.
Too easy, Dave.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Anyways, that was the news of the day.
Allegedly.
Of course, yes. You're in that place where I forgot Cody doesn't believe anything Marvel says. I'm pretty sure this was a real press release, though.
Until it is on the big screen, I'm not believing it.
You know Pedro Pascal has officially been cast, too.
I need to see a trailer with him in it.
They're going to have him in the trailer. He's still going to have the mustache, and I am going to go into the corner and yell. Because I'm just like, Reed Richards doesn't have a mustache.
But maybe he should have.
I mean, Pedro Richards does. And that's what we're going with. All right. That's all the news I got. With short news, because we might go long on the documentary.
I am impressed.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Look at us.
We're freeing up more room to talk about this because I sense that you guys are going to have a lot to say.
Oh, I will.
About the documentary.
I'm even wearing a shirt for the doc, so.
Yeah, you're wearing your Bray Wyatt shirt.
Uncle Howdy. Yes.
Uncle Howdy.
So
yeah. I didn't know anything about this, but we'll talk about that here in a second. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and it's a What's Up, Doc episode of Pop Culture Pasture. That means we have DJ Dangerfield with us because he is our resident documentary geek. Always fun to have DJ on, and we figured since this is a big week for wrestling fans,
Mania.
It's Mania week. WrestleMania. What are we on now?
40.
WrestleMania 40.
And Vince can't be there.
Nope.
We're not supposed to say his name, I thought, right?
We're not.
We're just not we can't even say his name.
And a few other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to talk about
who's we can't. Like
the
WWE banned like even saying his name.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of funny because Vince had all these banned terms, including like belt, because the championship's not a belt. It's not holding your pants up.
Oh, okay. But it's literally something they put around their waist. I mean, they put on the championship belt.
It's a strap.
It's a strap.
All right. He lost me on that.
Okay, so I'm with you in that I know how he died, but the amount of grief that came over me watching this was not prepared for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's
I have to open with that so that what I'm about to say makes sense.
Okay.
I've learned with me, if I don't tell you what I'm feeling, then you won't understand what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So I think if you love people, you have to be clearer. And I haven't done my due diligence, even from the pulpit. So now I have to do it this way. Because if you're going to understand, you got to understand how I was watching it to understand why I'm thinking what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Same thing with you preaching a text. I got to understand how you were looking at it. So I got to understand why you're drawing the conclusion you're drawing.
Okay.
So real quick, I have to say this on the onset for the people who may not be into wrestling. So wrestling comes from the carny business. Wrestling comes from the carny business.
Okay. Short for carnival?
Carnival, yes. So you got the woman who looks like olive oil from Popeye, and she's lifting 500 pounds with one arm, and then she sets the weight down and it goes kaboosh. And then the men try to go grab it and they can't move it. And you're trying to figure out, is there a lever? Is there a button? Is she really lifting it? What's going on? Okay, that's the carnival business. They did all of that. Okay, come see the woman with the one big head. Okay, it's very important that if you understand wrestling, to say wrestling is fake, you totally don't understand what this is about. Duh. You totally don't understand what this is about. So there's a term in wrestling that actually can be used in our politics today. It's called kayfabe, or kayfabe, however you want to pronounce it. Kayfabe. This is a big part of wrestling. I think this is important why you watch this, so you can understand why I'm going to say what I say later. Kayfabe is the idea you don't know what's real and you don't know what's fake, and we protect that. You don't know if me and Cody really have a problem with each other because he slept with my wife, or if it's been written in, or if it's real. Now, before the internet, this is what made the Attitude Era so magical. Because does Stone Cold really hate Vince McMahon? We don't know. Does Hulk Hogan and Macho Man does Hulk Hogan really want to sleep with Elizabeth? Okay,
yeah.
So these are real things. Did Ric Flair really have a heart attack in the ring? And I fell for that. Okay, so this is what makes. And then I was at the match with Owen Hart. I was in Kansas City. That was in Kemp Arena when he died. And I thought it was fake because I fell for the Ric Flair thing a couple months before that. Around the same time, Owen Hart falls from the ceiling. I think that's fake. And it was realer than real can be. So I want you to understand that if you don't understand wrestling, what makes wrestling the most intriguing is there's, like Marvel, there's all kinds of Easter eggs happening if you really know how to pay attention. We're seeing that now with The Rock and this storyline building up for WrestleMania. And we don't know, is he really confronting Triple H backstage, or is this been planned out? That's what makes wrestling one of the most intriguing layers to wrestling, is that when I didn't know if Bray Wyatt is coming back to WWE and he's given this dissertation because they scripted it, and somebody said, I think it would be good if you go out there and act like, you're being yourself, or if he was really
being real.
Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you don't know that about wrestling, then this documentary doesn't have as many layers as it properly should. So that's why I wanted to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you aren't super aware of wrestling, one of my daughters actually watched the bulk of this documentary.
My wife watched it with me too.
And she knows nothing about wrestling.
Me neither does my wife.
But I think the humanity that you see in this documentary, and the documentary we're talking about is Bray Wyatt becoming
But here's what I want you to
immortal.
understand, though. As a wrestling fan, they did this to the Ultimate Warrior. They literally produced a documentary, and it was totally kayfabe.
Okay.
They took it. They took it off because Vince McMahon did it because he was mad at the Ultimate Warrior, and they made a kayfabe.
So it was fake documentary.
It was a fake. The way that they presented the Ultimate Warrior and the way they presented him was not fair to him. And so that's what I'm saying. That's a layer of something the WWE has always done.
Okay.
Okay. And so with Bray Wyatt, there's been these communications to the WWE universe that hasn't been fair.
Yes.
And they didn't treat him right. And the universe was aware of it. They did not cover that in the documentary. So I'm saying there's a ton of layers to this thing. So now they're all kind of like, oh, it's like Dr. King after he dies. Like, oh, I kind of like this dude.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's like there's a ton of layers going on here. You can see it in Braun Strowman's. You can just hear it in his voice. Like, this man was not giving the platform that for some reason all these other jackals got. And the WWE universe wanted him to have it. Like when CM Punk did his little spiel on the thing, when Bray Wyatt, when you look at the ratings, when he did his spiel in the middle of the ring, and that was really him, they had to cut the show like 3/4 because he took way too much time. He was not supposed to take that time. But the ratings were so high. They had to let it ride because he had everybody on TV. People were texting their friends. You got turned. The
Number
ratings,
one on Twitter, trending.
It just spiked. And they had to let it ride. This guy gave a 30-minute dissertation with no commercials, and they had to let it ride. But that was not what was scripted. So there's some layers here that when I start talking about them here in a little bit, you understand where I'm coming from. That's why I wanted to say that.
So I'll let you answer this question because I'm going to tell you what my broad feel of the documentary coming in completely fresh, not knowing really much of anything about Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt becoming immortal. So what the feeling I got from this documentary was, it seems like they started this as your general WWE kayfabe, as you put it, documentary. We're going to start filming him. We're going to start following him around, doing this thing. And then at some point in the development of this, it turned into a posthumous thing, a memorial of such. And it was in that moment where this documentary they were producing turned into something, I think, bigger than they thought it could be. Because at first I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but it's when we start getting these moments of, so the unreleased footage that they clearly would have never used.
Yeah.
That was the stuff where I'm like, oh, okay, we're getting to see the real guy. And that to me was the most interesting part. So is that kind of
Absolutely
what you think happened?
Yeah, it's a certain sense, yeah. I think that what happened with Triple H taking over, and now they're slower in their storytelling. That's what Bray always wanted. Mm-hmm. We went on a 10-year run here where they were finishing stories that weren't finished, but they would hurry it up and rush us out of it. You can tell it became corporate. The wrestling's about storytelling. Mm-hmm. Bray Wyatt, one of the most phenomenal creative storytellers there is. Way ahead. I think there's going to be a day 20 years from now where it's going to look the way he had it in his head. He was just Prince. He's just way ahead of his time. We don't have CGI. We don't have that yet in wrestling. Live CGI. He's ahead of the technology even on the things that he wanted to present to the audience as a way of telling a story. And he wants to take his time. And back in the day when it was territories, you took your time because you could earn money. It's a male soap opera. We got to watch this story unfold. It's not an athletic contest as much as it's storytelling.
I mean, literally, if you go back even more recently with like WCW, Sting's hanging up in the rafters for like a year.
Yeah. We don't know what it means. So with Bray, he starts to bring that back. Even more so, this next return, I think he probably could have been the one to take Roman off the shelf.
Oh, yeah.
Because the storytelling would have been so genius. He would have took that acknowledge me piece to a whole nother level, right? Mm-hmm. So Triple H is taking us back to our roots, and we're seeing that now with The Rock. You know that we all don't know where this is going. You can kind of guess, but we're just not for sure. So I'm so happy where we're heading with Triple H because it's now time to tell stories and tell them slower. They messed up. They fixed it immediately, Cody. They took Cody Rhodes out of the main event. The WWE Universe said, we're not going for that. They fixed it immediately and made it a part of the storyline. That's old school. That's listening to your audience. That's paying attention. And I don't care what anybody says. When The Rock went backstage and he confronted Triple H in the middle of that interview, it seemed real. Yeah. I'm not, they clearly were acting, but I'm like, we're back. It's back. Because Bray Wyatt was a genius storyteller. That's what he did. Mm-hmm. And when the territory days, me and Cody are going to tell a story. He slept with my wife, so I'm going to beat him up, and we're going to go back and forth. I caught him in my house. We're going to do a vignette where he's sneaking out of my house, and we're going to keep running this stuff, and I'm going to make it as real as possible. I almost act like I'm running you over. I tried to kill you. All these different things. So we finally get to Starrcade 92, right?
Yep.
Okay, and so... And then me and you would go to another territory. I would go to a territory. We made our run in Memphis. We fought for a full year, made $120,000 a piece, and now I'm going to go to Florida, and you're going to go to California. That's how they used to do it. And then I'll come back, and there'll be a new story for me to tell, right? Yeah. Now that WWE is kind of the dominant global giant, they don't have to tell stories. They just have an audience that's captivated.
So I do think that AEW having like a surgence for a little bit
helped
put the pressure on WWE that they had to start being like, well, something's got to change. In which WWE, that is their strength, is the potential of storytelling, because they don't do just primarily matches. They have interviews, they have vignettes, they have promos. Where AEW, like 90% of it is strictly matches.
Yeah. So with Bray Wyatt, it's kind of like Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Vince McMahon has been the shot caller, rightfully so. But he missed with this husky character.
Oh, my goodness.
They missed on that.
Yeah.
He didn't want that, and they didn't care. And that's WWE. That's no matter what anybody tells you, I don't care who the creative guy is, Vince McMahon goes, do I want Bray's idea or do I want Husky
Harris?
Yeah. And it goes, everybody that they say comes out through that tunnel, through that Titan, through the gorilla to the ring, Vince McMahon has to approve of that character. Okay, so you might come up with the idea, but Vince McMahon says it's like when Sean Puffy Combs has, I guess I better not say that name. It's like when Tommy Hilfiger has a certain clothing line. He doesn't create all the shirts, but not one is going to hit the rack without his approval.
Right.
Okay, so that's where Vince McMahon was, and he missed on this kid. Yeah. And the kid's idea was better. Clearly, they should have used him for more characters. Clearly, he was mentoring people.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly, he was helping people. He had the best in-ring psychology since The Undertaker.
So
he's up there with the greats when it comes to in-ring and out-of-the-ring psychology, right?
He is up there with Undertaker and Sting for like my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
And so that's where I came into the documentary was like, okay, this dude was someone that I actually like was invested in.
Yeah, allow me to pull it in here because I do want to talk about this specifically. So this documentary is about Bray Wyatt. It gives you all the background. He's the son of a wrestler. Mm-hmm. His mom's
three generations.
The brother of or the sister of a wrestler. Mm. She's from a wrestling family. Wrestling's in their blood. His name's Wyndham Rotunda is his real name. Yep. The Rotundas, I remember seeing his dad on WCW. Then he went on to WWF / WWE. He's IRS.
A great grandson of Blackjack Mulligan. That's a big deal.
So we've talked about all this stuff so far. Bray's clearly considered one of the tops. You just heard Cody say that. What I want to ask is, where does he stand as a wrestler? Like technique, athleticism. And if that's not his strength and forte, how did he become so? Because I think the documentary does a good job of, and DJ's already kind of mentioned, he's a storyteller. Yeah. And I want to get into that a little bit.
So he's like a Ric Flair. Ric Flair wasn't a very good wrestler. Hulk Hogan, not a very good wrestler. Stone Cold, not a very good wrestler. None of these guys, even Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash had one move. Yeah. Get you in the corner and do that little, and then he powerbomb you. Yeah. So he's like those guys. Like they were so charismatic and such good at storytelling and making things believable that their lack maybe of their athleticism did not matter. Mm-hmm. And that's how I kind of felt about him. He wasn't a bad wrestler, but when you talk about like, he's not going to blow your mind, but the way Al Snow was a really good athlete and storyteller. Okay, Al Snow, every movement Al Snow does in the ring is for a purpose, and he's telling a story. So he's going to tell you, work on my left knee, I'm going to work on your right arm. And so like when you try to pin me, you can't quite pin me because your right arm is so sore, I'm able to get out. So if you have a bad if you put me in the sleeper hold and you use your right arm to choke me out, I'm going to work on that right arm. So when you put the sleeper hold on, you're going to be acting like it's hurting, and I don't go all the way out. It takes it longer to put me out because your right arm isn't at full strength because I've been beating it up this whole match. That's the type of stuff Al Snow would do. And he was a good wrestler. That's the type of wrestler Bray Wyatt. So you even tell stories like it's a fake fight, it's a choreographed fight, but you're telling a story. Can this guy's high flying action ground Bray Wyatt? And what is Bray Wyatt going to do about that? And he acted weird. He had a family around him, so he has a stable. So you don't just have to beat him. You have to figure out how you beat all of his goons, and they're already beating you with this psychological warfare.
And then randomly during the match, he'll get on all fours, but it's upside down.
And yes, and where the documentary clearly shows the WWE missed on this kid is John Cena was on board.
Oh yeah,
John Cena loved him. They ran through that storyline and moved on so fast, and John Cena was like, "I'm loving this dude. Even our bad matches are crazy." And even John Cena was like, wait, I can't picture what you're saying. Like, I just feel like it confirmed for me what me and you were thinking when they just fired him suddenly. Like, he wasn't given a fair shot. That's why the tears are so real in this documentary. Because this family knows, like, Braun Strowman knows this dude had so much to give, and they blocked it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I would say he was an average wrestler. Like, he's not going to blow you away with his talent. Although I will say his finisher just looks nasty.
It is definitely that.
So,
Sister Abigail.
Here's what I would. Then my question to you, Cody, would be this: think about the people who listen to this podcast who maybe aren't wrestling fans. Explain to them why he was special.
So, going back to what John Cena was talking about, John Cena mentions that if you pay attention to his vignettes and promos, it sounded like a bunch of random ramblings, but it's deep, it's profound, and he's captivating. It is theater, but in an athletic venue. And it also, so for me, like, when you have, because he was always an evil,
He was always like kind of a bad guy. Yeah.
Dark entity force, if you will, his character was. But through it, you could see what good looks like. And he would expose the good people for being bad, and he would bring out, like, the good and the bad people. His character was an interesting dichotomy. So he was always intriguing to watch and listen. And the matches were good because they were well planned out. In this documentary does a good job of showing that he, like, over prepared for everything. If he's shooting a promo, he's going to run it back like 30 times. He wants to have the match go this way and do this certain thing at this time because it fits the character's story arc and where we've been building. And so, yes, I think that he might not have been the best at, like, the athleticism as some of like the high flyers or
like Ricochet.
Yes, Ricochet. Holy cow, that dude. Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
Some of these guys are, like, really phenomenal, and you really just want to watch them wrestle. I would tune in because Bray was creative and it was something different. Something that we really hadn't seen, especially at this level. And when he relaunches as The Fiend and has the Firefly Funhouse, like, that's all new.
Yeah.
That was way out there.
I wrote down here in my notes that Bray Wyatt is Steven Spielberg. He's like any sort of content creation out there, entertainment, whatever. And DJ mentioned it. He's a storyteller. And I think these people are actually fewer and far between maybe than we give it credit for. They're special. So, like, yeah, like not everyone directing a movie in Hollywood is good at it, like on the level that Spielberg is. And it's because they understand stories. They understand what intrigues humans, people. And this dude clearly has it. This documentary follows him through his youth. He plays football for a community college and a Division II college. His brother, I found it interesting. His younger brother went into wrestling before him.
Yeah.
He kind of follows his brother there after the football thing doesn't work out, and is a natural. I mean, almost immediately. There is the stuff you brought up, the husky stuff, where they're clearly making fun of his physique.
Yep.
Which was interesting to me. That gives it like a kind of a view of the behind the scenes of the harshness of the business. Maybe
there is a hazing that Vince will do with you to see if you have the makeup. So there's a term that our listener audience can Google that's like basically called in-ring psychology. And it's a very important aspect to professional wrestling. In-ring psychology is your ability to be believable, to tell a story, and to be charismatic. And so it has to be believable. You have to somehow, if you're going to pretend to be something, so like, for instance, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, really had a mansion. The WWE owned it. He really went everywhere in a limousine, and they always gave him thousands of dollars worth of expendable cash because when he was in public, they wanted that character to be that believable. Can you imagine? Hey, go spend money and act like you're rich.
Yeah. Now,
Don't mind if I do.
Do they do this for the people like him, Ric Flair, who maybe really aren't that good of an actor, but they made them believe they were this guy?
Absolutely, yeah. That's part of the gig, right? And Vince McMahon became a genius. So they put a certain amount of money in you to make your character believable, and they give you a certain amount of storylines, and they're hoping that one of these pay-per-views, they can get their ROI, their return on investment through merchandise, through pay-per-view buys. They track every dime they put into one dude. So can he make chicken soup out of chicken, right? We're going to give him this husk because this guy has some ideas. I'm not going to just come out the gate and give him $25, $45, $150,000 for his idea over a year's time. And then we get to the pay-per-view buy and the pay-per-view's down and then nobody buying this guy's merchandise. So there's a little bit of that hazing going on. Like they did it to Chris Jericho in the WCW and it totally made him who he was.
Yeah.
They would not put Chris Jericho on. He made up his own Gilbert. He came with his own Goldberg. We loved him. And then Vince McMahon scooped him up. They were preparing him for a run. They waited too long because he literally beat Goldberg up in the office. Chris Jericho wanted to fight Goldberg. He wanted to do this whole build up to it. And he's like, you can beat me, but I want to do this whole build up to this thing. And Goldberg was like, but it's not believable. Chris Jericho, yes, it is. Anybody can lose. And they stood up. He kicked him and then put him in a sleeper hold. And Goldberg got put to sleep by Chris Jericho. Jericho's like, anybody can get whipped on any given time. So they didn't do him right in WCW. Well, Vince McMahon scooped him up, and immediately they put Chris Jericho against The Rock. The storytelling started happening. They both are good on the mic. Pay-per-view was out the roof, okay? So that's kind of what you're going for. So you're looking for, if a person comes down the ring and says, my name is the Texas Bounty Hunter, and he has to look like a bounty hunter. He has to smell like a bounty hunter. When he goes in public, they want to really believe that you have handcuffs on you. Like one of the documentaries I watched, there's some really good documentaries you can watch. One is called The Dark Side of the Ring. Yep. And the other one's called The Territories. And they're interviewing Jake the Snake. And Jake the Snake said, they're talking about Memphis, the territory of Memphis. Now, I want you to understand where this comes from. So when you were in a territory, you had to leave because your character would get old. So you had to leave and go to another territory. This is before television, right? Mm-hmm. Now you have to remake your character. So like the Undertaker becomes the Dead Man. Then he goes from the Dead Man to, right? Yep. Undertaker 3000 or whatever that was. So they changed their character a little bit.
The American BA.
The American, yeah. You change your character a little bit because if you don't, we get bored with it, right? And so your character only has a certain amount of shelf life, and you got to do something. That's what made him brilliant. Mm-hmm. Because he kept going to a whole nother level. Like the Undertaker had some good characters, and it was cool when he came out in the motorcycle, but nobody has done, to me, as far as remaking themselves. Like he wasn't schizophrenic, but he definitely was like the guy from the movie
Split.
Yes.
Yeah. So dissociative identity.
Yes. Thank you.
Multiple personality disorder.
He pulled that off like a genius.
Which Alexa Bliss mentions during it.
And he was making fun of his old character at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So that's part of in-ring psychology where at some point in time, so Macho Man became the Macho King. Oh, yeah. He became the Macho King, right? You have to do something that says, I got to put some seasoning on this thing because I don't want you to think this is going to taste the same every time you see me. So sometimes they go bad. Like Hulk Hogan went to Hollywood Hogan and he became a bad guy, right? Yeah. So that's part of what so in-ring psychology, man, he's in the top 5 all time to me.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bray individually because I think the thing that really jumped out to me with this documentary is the contrast. You mentioned guys like Ric Flair, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, the guys that were kind of in on the kayfabe, whereas The contrast you get with Wyndham Rotunda is there's a clear difference between The Fiend, between Bray Wyatt and Wyndham Rotunda in his real life. You saw the family man. You see the care. Like, to me, I come from a family of divorce. So when I find out that he had 2 kids and his first wife, they got divorced, I kind of sat forward in my chair because I'm like, oh, okay, let's see who he is. And to know that they were still close.
Yeah,
they were still a family, even though he got remarried.
Yeah.
He got remarried, had more kids with his new wife, but they were all together. Like, you saw those kids all together, and I'm like, oh, this guy's different.
Absolutely.
And I think the documentary highlighted that when you become a bigger superstar, which during that turmoil in his first marriage,
he didn't handle it right. He didn't handle
that, like, you're on the road a lot.
Yeah, she was alone.
There's a lot more demand of you to be at events, and it's hard to manage both the success of that and being a husband. And so that was tough.
Well,
So-
his mom says it too. His mom says she was the wife of a wrestler, his dad, and she says she was alone raising kids.
So the issue with wrestling, and they die. It's gotten better,
Yes.
but there was a run that we had in wrestling where they were dying because Ric Flair went from Ric Flair, however you say his real name,
Fleer.
to Ric Flair. He really is there's no differentiation now.
Right.
He really is Ric Flair. There comes and if you ever get to watch Ted DiBiase's testimony, he talks about how his wife almost left him because he became the $1 Million Man, right? So I was actually impressed with how he didn't.
Yeah.
How healthy he was out of the ring at a time where things are not healthy.
Yeah.
After COVID. You know, he had his alcohol and his depression. He had some dark nights, but I don't think it's based on his characters. His issues with his mental health was something that he's always had. It wasn't that he was like, I feel like I'm going to be the Fiend today. That's not what's going on. I haven't seen that done before. A lot of guys who have a character that connects, that gets the cheers, it's almost like Superman and Clark Kent, right? Clark Kent starts to get jealous of Superman because that's who Lois Lane wants. And he wants her to want him, but he's never going to get her being Superman. And he gets frustrated with that, right? And that happens in real life to wrestlers is like, I'm Jimmy Superfly Snuka, but I'm not. But the only thing that gets cheered for, the only thing that's appreciated, the only thing that people love is Snuka, right? He did a great job of not having to become this thing outside of the ring, I thought. I was really waiting for this breakdown, but no, he understood that what he was doing. He says in the very beginning, which I didn't realize this, you knew it before I did, that he was just wanting to differentiate. He's like, I need people to see evil so you can differentiate beauty from it. Like, without me, how do you know what's beautiful? And I just thought, no, that's old school. That when wrestling first started, it was good versus evil. Evil's going to win when they cheat. Good is always going to win, right? And you're trying to teach kids that ultimate gospel story that good always wins, right? So he still had even that in him from watching his dad.
And like, so his, when he transformed into the Fiend, that character came about. Like, there was something unique about that character, even if the matches weren't great, because at times they didn't know what to do with him. But it would transform the wrestler that he went against. Like, Seth Rollins became the Monday Night Messiah.
Yeah, buddy.
And then, other wrestlers that he would go against, Randy Orton became even more unhinged. And, his character had something that would transform, because, like, Randy had kind of become a good guy by that point because he'd just been there forever. And it's like, nope, we're going back to Dark Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the crazy thing about this is, I'll tell you where I start getting emotional. I get unexpectedly emotional when I watch this documentary.
Yes, I did too.
Because I don't know anything about this guy, really. I haven't watched wrestling in 20 years. I'm watching it because I knew you guys wanted to do this for WrestleMania. I was down with that. And I thought it would be interesting. And I start getting emotional because of the things we've, kind of talked about here, that he's different. He's not living in the kayfabe. He's this family man. He really, the thing that really starts making me emotional is like, listen, we can sit here and we're pastors. We can examine society and say, there's all these people out there that have chosen their professions, right? They chose their education so they could go into the profession they want, so they could get the career they want. Then they try to get the position they want in that career. They try to attain to these heights. They want to get the spouse they want. They want to get the family they want. They want to get the house, the car. They get all those things and they're not content. There's no contentedness.
Amen.
And I just went Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, man.
And here's a guy who just loved wrestling, but more so, he seems content even when things aren't going well. Like, so Cody, you mentioned they didn't always know what to do with him. Even though they know they've got something, they're still not doing it quite right by him. He seems like unhappy with that. But there was something about him that was different. And I think it was said multiple times in this documentary. He says it. I just love the fans. They showed these behind the scenes clips.
It was genuine.
Yeah, of him with these meet and greets where you could see it. He made every fan that come up to him think that like they were the most special person in that moment.
But he was also embarrassed. Like there were times where people were like kissing him and loving him, and he almost was like ashamed.
The guy that kissed the ring.
Yeah. You could tell he was like, no.
Right, because he's humble.
Yes.
There's humility.
Yes.
Which caused him to be present with people. He loved people.
That's the word. Yeah.
And like even more so than wrestling. Him and his brother love wrestling.
Yeah, but
he loved people.
I agree with you.
So I wish the documentary would have covered this, but since his passing, like these stories have come out that like Braun Strowman, when he first comes to WWE, Bray Wyatt pays for his hotel rooms because he's struggling financially at the beginning. Becky Lynch, he teaches her how to do table match spots because she hadn't really done many of them in her training. And she had a big one coming up, and he took her under his wing, and like he would make time for all these wrestlers and his fans. And yeah, it was about the people. It was about connecting. It was about the storytelling was to further connect.
He's not trying to handcuff someone. He's not trying to knock someone else's legs out
It's
under
clear.
them so he can get above them, right?
Yeah.
Which is what we see in the world so much.
Absolutely.
Well, if you look, so they showed quite a few of his matches, and as we're watching this documentary, I'm like, he lost that one.
He lost
that one.
He lost most of them.
He was losing on
Left and
the
right.
pay-per-views.
He lost all the time.
Left and right.
He barely run.
Which is so weird for a guy that was as popular as him, or got the pop, as they say. I know some of that wrestling terminology.
Yes.
Some of the scenes they showed, and as I'm watching this, as someone who was a fan of wrestling at one point, I could tell from just the pop. I was like, oh, he was big.
Yeah.
Oh, one of my favorite wrestling like just scenes is him and Roman Reigns are a tag team during this match. Roman spears a guy as Bray's pinning, and Bray points back as Roman's spearing him, and like the pin happens in 3 count, and it's like you have to like be really aware of what's going on in the match to know what the other person's doing that's fighting off the other tag team partner. And yeah, no, he got it, and it connected so well.
The thing that I did not realize was how much of it was all him. So you got to understand. So, and I don't mean to say it. I need to find another way to say it. There's so like you have a booker. And the booker, and I'm sure they have a different name for the WWE, the probably producer. He's the one that they call the booker because he books the match. And he typically in the territorial days, if you were a booker, you had the money to pay to get the people there to have the match you wanted. But you wouldn't necessarily plan the match. The agent, AEW calls him the coach.
Yeah.
The agent would sit down with 2 guys and go, okay, what are you guys thinking? The booker says he wants Cody Havlin to get over. That means to win. And you sit down with the agent and you plan the match and you make sure that it ends out the way that the booker says that he wants it to end out. Okay. Mm-hmm. He was all those things in one. He was a phenomenal wrestler. he could plan a whole match, and he knew what matches need to happen. He would go into Vince McMahon's office with ideas about other matches. He would give guys ideas to do against each other. He was playing agent backstage. I didn't realize this. Helping people plan, it would be awesome if you did this. It'd be awesome if you did this. And, nobody's ever did this, and you need to do this. And so Randy Orton was like, oh my gosh, this dude's like like at first you're kind of like a fly, like go away, little boy. But then you're like, that's actually a genius idea. Yeah. So I want to say that in a long time, he had kind of a Kevin Sullivan piece to him, where Kevin Sullivan was that dark dude, but he was also the booker and an agent. He had the gift of storytelling, creating matches. He was kind of a throwback like that. And it's just not heard of. And I think in the world of the WWE, where there's a lot of people grappling for a lot of positions and a lot of testosterone, a lot of people want to be number one, I think a lot of people up here were intimidated.
Well, and like the thing that sticks out is, knowing how well liked he was within the organization. And at the kind of the height of his popularity, one of the times after he came back, there was a time when Paul Levesque, Triple H, says this. He said he would call me and he'd throw all these ideas out at me. And we'd talk on the phone for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then he said something like that really just floored me. He said, we'd talk for an hour and a half and hang up, and he'd call me right back. And he'd just say, I just want to say how much I appreciate all this, how happy and grateful I am. Yeah. And I was just like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think of all the dudes who've been big in wrestling. Like, do you think Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair expressed enough of that, like that gratitude? Because you have to have the humility of this man was just like, and someone who was the son of a wrestler, where you might feel like they grew up with like an entitlement of like, no, I'm going to be a wrestler because my dad was a wrestler. You have no choice. I'm a wrestler.
Yeah, but this other piece where Cody can explain it better than I can, where if me and Cody are wrestling and I beat him and what that can do to him in regards to being a believable competitor. So they try to protect their brand by being careful how we end this match, right? So like there are some people who have never had anybody get up from their finishing move because they have it in their contract. Like, it's not allowed. You're not kicking out of my finishing move, okay? Because once I lose my finishing move, I lose that. So some guys were really insecure. Hogan was one of them. Mm-hmm. He did not. He was so secure in his gift and how over he is with the community that losing wasn't something that he had a problem with. Mm-hmm. He would get people over. John Cena is also really good at this. You won't believe if you Google wrestlers who John Cena put over, it'll blow your mind. I mean, you're looking at KO, you're looking at Bray Wyatt. I mean, he lost to a bunch of guys. And if John Cena wanted to, he'd say, I'm not losing to these guys because it makes me look like I'm a loser. And I go around talking about eat your vitamins, win, that type of thing, right? And Bray Wyatt was another one that was like, okay, let's play it out. If the storyline makes sense, I'm down. Just make the story make sense. That's all he cared about, is making the story make sense. And so he would get into trouble because he did have a lot of ideas. And they should have used him a little more with other wrestlers to kind of help him get them out. You know what I mean? He did have he could run his own wrestling company.
Oh, yeah. Like even his like comeback story where we were going to potentially have the Wyatt Six, which would have been each of those puppets from the Funhouse coming to life, having a wrestler as that persona.
Yes. Dude, the Funhouse is like just brilliant.
Yeah.
Just genius.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those little puppet characters and how they were like little Easter eggs.
Yeah, and that he was using to make fun of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The things that people made fun of him about, those characters were him kind of putting that back in your face. Like, here it is. Here's the guy who rambles. Here's the person. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's like, he was genius. Like it would have been pretty cool to see where he was going to take this thing.
Yeah.
Now, do we talk about the rumor or do we just let it go?
The rumor.
Go for it.
I'm not aware of this.
The rumor is that his brother's coming back.
Well, yes. I think that was sort of a takeaway from the end of the documentary.
Yeah, there's a little Easter egg there at the end, right?
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about that? Are we going to?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be cool, right? Wouldn't people want that? And is he going to pay tribute to the characters of his brother?
So I think that he's going to, if he comes back, he's supposed to be Uncle Howdy.
That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Which
that's
is
what I
how
read.
they kind of ended before Bray got sick, was he was Uncle Howdy. Bray Wyatt was still discovering who Bray Wyatt was.
So, but he'll carry on the tradition of the Fireflies.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's because that's like of the wrestling experience I have, the wrestling I loved. I don't think there was a cooler gimmick than that.
Do you remember in WCW the Raven?
Yes. Yeah.
And he would come out with his flock, and he would say,
Who cares about Raven?
Yeah, and he would lay in the corner, nevermore, and there was like these cryptic messages that he was saying that you didn't know for sure what he was saying, and he went on his little run, and it kind of died out, and I think he was a combination of all of those characters, right, and just whole nother life with it. And when it comes to remaking yourself, when you go back and watch, and then the documentary and it shows his final creation, that is just the creepiest looking thing. He wanted stuff to be somewhat like, he wanted to look as 3D as possible. Like he was trying to, it's just like whole nother level. Like it's not just a robe. Like he's trying to figure out, how can I give the impersonation of a 3D person in the ring?
Yeah.
So how can I give them something beautiful while I'm on all fours, but I'm face up this time? And here's a picture of my fiance.
Yeah.
Well, you know how he
mask.
puts the date on the forehead and it's his son's birthday. He does some weird stuff like what's the numbers for? And really, it's a shout out to his son for his birthday. His birthday's on May 18th. He's like, he was just different.
Yeah, he's really the ultimate storyteller.
Absolutely.
In the fact that how many guys at that level want to wear a mask to cover up their face? They want it to be them. They want it to. They want to be famous. They want to get over on this. And he's actively wanting to put on masks. Not only that, he's the guy who's he doesn't want to play Dungeons and Dragons. He wants to be the DM. He wants to tell the story. He doesn't care about playing the game. Right?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is totally wild. And it's just, as a pastor, if I can bring that back to that, I'll kind of close with this thought here. It's just remembering the body, and as pastors and leaders, we want to make sure we're using all those gifts. I feel like he was an underappreciated, underused gift.
Yeah.
And I think in the church, it can get political, even in our small. You got power families, you got this politicking that goes on, and you can have unused, misappropriated gifts in your congregation that have ideas that'll bring people to Christ in a way that maybe your church would never see or know. And I just want to make sure that as a pastor, I do a better job of making sure that people are seen and heard. And when somebody is gifted, they're weird, right? That's what Pastor told us from the Methodist Church on Holy Week. They're weird, and we don't need to let their ideas intimidate us. You don't, just because you've never seen it before, never heard, or maybe they're asking you to do it at a larger scale than you think you're capable of. And we know all the scriptures that nothing's impossible for God, but we also know that, there's a way to do things, right? That don't let somebody's dream or somebody's idea cause you to dismiss them. And I felt like I'm not the other person. I don't have the emotion. If you're an agent and you just want to sit down and go over a match, and this guy's just rattling off all these impossible things, and we got a match coming up here in 3 hours, I understand that emotional energy that comes with that and the pressure that comes with that. But it just kind of convicted me. I want to make sure as a pastor that I'm seeing and hearing people and not just dismissing them because it's oh, you want to open a soup kitchen? Oh,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
what's your takeaway from Bray Wyatt? What is your takeaway from watching this, being a fan of the guy?
So my takeaway was, and DJ touched on it earlier, Triple H or Paul Levesque talks about there was times that Bray was throwing out all these ideas, and I'm just thinking, how can we get this in the ring?
Yeah.
How does this work in the ring?
It's almost impossible, it feels like.
So for me, I would compare Bray Wyatt to like Nikola Tesla. He had so many far out there ideas, but they have become more of a reality in our modern age. That's like, oh, he saw it. He was just way ahead of the time. And there was something else that, so DJ talked about being convicted about overlooking people with talent. Something that convicted me was Mysterium Tremendum, which is awe-inspiring mystery for the kids out there. But so they show a clip from his first vignette with the family, and he's like, I don't like it when you lie to your children about things that go bump in the night. Like, he made you feel that there was something bigger than you. And that's a thing that we struggle with in our culture, in our society, and even in parenting at times. Like, there's something bigger than us. There's something more powerful than us. There's good that's way, way more powerful than us. There's things that are evil that are way more powerful than us. And like, he brought you to a mindful moment, and that you have to be aware. And so that's it for me. Besides that, I'm glad that they included the Luke Harper piece.
Amen.
Because that was a devastating loss for Bray Wyatt and for the wrestling community, and they were really close friends. And yes, I'm glad that they included that.
If I knew nothing about wrestling and I knew nothing about any of these characters, the one part that all I would have needed to see of this documentary was after he passes away, the WWE, and I'm not even sure what I'm watching, but it was clearly clips from the next, whatever the next show was after his death.
Yes.
And you've got all the wrestlers standing out there. Huge masses of humanity, these people in top
Behemoth
physical condition. What's Braun Strowman? Was he like 6'8"?
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous.
At least.
He's grown, man. He's grown, man.
Just huge. And they're sobbing.
Yeah.
They are absolutely weeping. The Becky Lynch, there's a part where she's sitting there, and she's trying to tell a story of what Wyndham Rotunda did for her.
Yeah.
When he didn't have to. Like, that he gave himself to others in these environments where he didn't have to. He was present with them. And she just starts sobbing. She can't even get through it in front of all these people who are there to watch wrestling, you know? And it becomes this, like, whatever happened on that SmackDown or whatever that was, it's clear that it became a memorial service.
There's a clip of LA Knight talking about Bray Wyatt after his passing, but LA Knight is true to kayfabe. He's not going to break it when he's on screen. And like, he's trying to pay tribute, but he's also the last match Bray Wyatt ever had. And so like, they were competitors, but he ends it with Bray's phrase of, you better run. And like, all the feels.
Yeah. And so,
well, you know, the first time he's saying he's got the whole world in his hands, that was creepy and genius at the same time. Like when he was like, he's got the whole world. And then he just blew out that lantern. The first time he did that, it was like, and then the whole thing went dark.
Yes.
Oh, bruh. Yeah. That was just like, in the documentary, it says he wasn't a wrestler, he was an artist. Not that. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm convicted with from those end scenes, knowing what happened, that he died young, is the effect he had on people. So many of those wrestlers, and Wyndham Rotunda himself, Bray Wyatt, that you could say, well, My legacy, Ric Flair would be like, my legacy is I'm a 14-time world champion.
16 now.
Oh, 16,
Yeah,
whatever.
he got a couple extra
Hulk
at
Hogan,
the
my
end.
legacy is this many titles. All these wrestlers could say this. And all I need to know about Wyndham Rotunda's legacy played out in the final few minutes of that documentary. Because when you're present with people, the emotions, the feelings, the memories they shared, that's real legacy.
Amen.
And what it teaches us, and what I thought, this is why I'm crying. Like, I was just weeping through the last 20, 30 minutes of this documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Because he figured it out, and I'm not even sure he knew he figured it out.
Amen. And can we be honest and say that the people who do most of the time, they don't know it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's clear when you watch it. Yeah.
He's just built like that. That was just who he was. But the cool thing about the conviction for us is we can learn from that. Like right now, there's nothing more important. Like I'm not doing this so I don't care about, oh boy, I hope my podcast gets more listens. Oh, I hope we go viral. No. What's most important right now is I'm present with my friends Cody and DJ, and we're present. We're talking about wrestling and the pop culture we like. In this moment, that's what's important. What's important is that you, the listener, are in this with us.
Amen.
You're in this conversation. We're present with you. And even though we're separated by a microphone and speakers, you're with us because we want you with us. This is what community is. This is what we value. This is why we go to comic conventions, Cody, because this is what's important. This present was with us. And for some of those people that met Bray Wyatt for 2 minutes, it was the biggest moment of their lives.
Absolutely.
One of them even says that. A couple of the fans say this is the greatest. His brother says, working with the little brother said, so right at the end of his career, right before he dies, he gets that time working with his brother. Actually working with him. He said, it was the best time of my life.
Why do you guys think he took the vest off?
Oh, man. I don't know. I wish he didn't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't know. I don't know what you think.
I don't know either. Just interesting.
I do believe that, we're not promised tomorrow. And so I don't know if anything would have been different, anything would have changed. But I do know this. Wyndham Rotunda lived a lot more years than 36 years than people that live 80 years.
Amen.
Yeah.
Be present with your people.
Amen.
Be present with your people. Love on the people around you. That's the enduring lesson of Wyndham Rotunda, I think.
Amen.
And for the people that have listened clear to this point and aren't really big wrestling fans, but might be horror fans, like, shout out to Jason Baker. The guy that made all his stuff, made the imagination of Bray Wyatt come to life. So he does movie props. Like, he made the creepy mask for the black phone, or the black phone. And this dude, at the end, he talks about missing going to work with his best friend on this creative stuff.
And you know what's wonderful about that is if Wyndham Rotunda has a lasting legacy and a conviction for you, is be the kind of person that when you're gone, like, listen, his little brother, the costume guy, Braun Strowman, the two guys that were in the family, Alexa Bliss, all these people that worked with him, they all said the same thing. He was my best friend.
Yeah.
I'm going to cry. I got to go. We got to go. I'm going to start crying. Oh, man, I made it through the whole episode. And I thought I was going to cry and almost did. So I'm just going to say this. Thank you so much for listening. What'd you think? If you haven't watched this documentary, and just because you think you're not a wrestling fan, you should go watch it. It's on Peacock. Bray Wyatt, Becoming Immortal. It's so engaging and so interesting. And if for nothing else than a human study, just a study of a man who figured something out in life and maybe didn't even realize he figured it out. So go watch that. Tell us what you think in the comments. Of course, subscribe to the pod. It helps us out. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure and like it. That helps with the algorithm, I'm told. I don't know how it works. Just do all the things. Help us out. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Pop culture master.